What would you do if you woke up to a terrifying shadow figure hovering over your bed? Have you ever captured something strange in an innocent photograph? Have you ever seen a figure lurking in the shadows at your workplace? Today, we test the believability of the mysterious 1 a.m. phone call.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
Where we dive into the unknown and the unusual.
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
That is right. Happy Tuesday. We are smack dab in the middle of spooky season.
Oh yeah, we are SpongeBob in the middle of the night, the Krusty Krab.
It is hash slinging slasher time. The walls are oozing green slime. It is good. I hope you're getting your horror movies in. I hope you're getting your scary TV shows in. I hope you're listening to your favorite horror podcast. And you know what? There's a ton of them.
There's a lot.
There's a lot of them, and there's a lot of really good ones. And there's a lot of really good ones that get more love from the platforms than us. I mean, whose soup do we have to Bailey for around here to get a little bit of love? But you know what? That's okay. You know why? Because you are listening to us right now, and we appreciate you. And we hope your week is just great, and you're enjoying this. Because you know, once Halloween hits and it's Thanksgiving time,
and my birthday,
and it's your birthday month, but all the spooky stuff is like
I like Christmas too. But you know what? Let's not get too far ahead of our spook. Like you said, we're right in the middle, stabbing a pumpkin.
Whoa, Charlie, it just hit me.
Yeah,
what is happening in about 2 weeks?
Oh, I think we're gonna be out of town doing our 5th annual Halloween episode.
That's right. That means we've each done 3 if you count the first one in half.
I count it in half
because it went us, you,
me,
us, you, me, you, me.
Yes,
and
that's right.
It's my time, and it's like actually kind of like a vacation for this other person. You know what I mean?
I like it. Yeah,
it's kind of like, yeah, you do your thing. I'm just gonna show up and talk. I mean, we know what the topic is. I'm not blindfolding Charlie and
but it's more of a come on, let's go.
Yeah, it's a good time, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Scary stories, trivia, giveaways. That is going to be Saturday, October 26th at 9 p.m. Eastern time. I realize that that's like the Saturday of Halloween.
It is.
So I will not be offended if you guys have like Halloween party plans or things like that. Like, and that Friday is good mythical evening. So,
yeah,
I didn't want to double over that because I will be watching that. But I just, I understand that is for like, I'm speaking to the people that are probably like 18 to 23.
Yeah.
I get it if you're busy. Okay.
If you're at a party, put it on in the party.
Put it on the party. If you're trick or treating,
put on your phone.
Put on your phone and blast it. You know what I mean? Like 80s boombox style.
It'll basically be a podcast.
Yeah, and if you miss it, it will be coming out on Tuesday. But that's no reason to miss it because then you can't win anything.
Yeah,
you can just hear the real winners win again.
If you send in the answer after us, I'm gonna ignore you.
Yeah, it's too late. It's too late. You know how depressing it would be if the person who wins is after the fact. That means no one's or our trivia questions were just got off them. But that said, that's a lot about that. So that is Saturday, October 26th, 9 p.m. Eastern time, 6 p.m. dinner time, West Coast. We're very excited. We're going out of state. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun. But with that said, it is listener submission time again. I got 2 stories for you today. Well, 2 submissions.
Okay.
I don't want to get caught up in the
semantics.
Technically, it was made up of 3 stories. 2 folks submitted their stories. And I do want to get this out front, and actually applies to both of them. Suicide trigger warning for both of those stories. We will not be offended if suicide hits you that way. If you don't want to listen, there's 234 100%. Other episodes you can listen to. But that said, let's get into it. So our first story comes to us from Jade in California.
Okay, cool.
The great state of California.
The big old state. Prospector Road.
Prospector. I almost said Proctor Road.
Oh, that's another road.
Yeah. By the way, obviously I'm not saying a last name. The way they spell Jade is dope.
Let's spell it.
Jayd.
Jade.
Jade. I think it's cool. So she says that she's always been pretty sensitive to the paranormal, but also very skeptical about things that have happened to her, which I think, we found that pretty typical in some of our submissions that we get. I think it's a very reasonable response, because even if you're a little bit sensitive, which you and I are, but we're not. Not
really.
I think it's good to be critical about the experiences you have and the things that you witness. So Jade says that she's been able to see shadows creeping around since she was very young.
See, if I had that power, I'd want to turn it off.
Yeah, just like, unplug it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need this. Returning it. Spirits would try their best to communicate with Jade and give her signs. Her first encounter that she can remember occurred when she was just around 4 years old, which my son is going to be 4 next year.
Yeah.
I'm having this weird moment of imagining him having a paranormal
first,
encounter.
Signs.
But not even that. A paranormal encounter, well, I mean, technically, yes. But a paranormal encounter that next year could stick with him for the rest of his life.
Yeah, in your house, definitely could happen.
Oh, thanks, bro. He's like, what was all the noise up in the attic?
Like, every night I heard shrieking.
Yeah, awesome. It's just very strange to think about. And I'm sure there's some younger, parents of young ones out there that can relate to how wild that idea is. So Jade was living with her mother in this very old apartment. And around that time, her mother's best friend had passed away to a drunk driving incident.
Jeez.
Now, Jade had never met him, or she couldn't recall meeting him. She's 4. Just keep that in mind. His name was James, and her mother kept a picture of him hanging in the living room of the apartment. And Jade remembers, even though she didn't know who this guy was or any relation, she didn't know he died, didn't know relation to the family, anything like that. She would just sit in the living room and stare at this picture of this guy. And her mom recounts how Jade would smile, pointing to the picture of him and say his name, James, just again and again and again, still without any real reason to know who he was. Eventually, Jade's mother took the picture down because Jade kept pointing and saying his name, and that was reminding her of the loss and made her really, really sad. Shortly after the photo was taken down, Jade started seeing a shadow figure in the apartment. She said he would play with her and he would follow her mother around the apartment. And this lasted about a year or so. Is this giving you it's him vibes or giving you, what are your thoughts on that?
I'd imagine it's him.
You think so?
I do.
So it's not super scary then?
I don't think so. No, I think this sounds like someone who either can't reconcile with being dead or doesn't really know how to cope with it.
It's a weird situation for the mom too, because you hang something up with the intention of it being, you kind of have to understand that it might be acknowledged. Now, it doesn't mean every single day someone's going to be like, hey, remember him?
Mm-hmm.
He's gone. Remember him? He's gone. You know what I mean? So I think it's trauma, it's depression, it's a lot of stuff there. So you can't look at her actions and be like, that was silly, because that's the mindset you're in. But for her daughter to point and say his name, that's
weird.
It is very strange. So a few years later, when Jade was around 6 or 7, her great-grandfather committed suicide. And he was really close to Jade. When he was around, Jade would always run into the room with him and they would watch TV together. He often smoked, whether in the house or outside, and from a young age, Jade would associate the smell of smoke with him. After his death, Jade would still run in that room, and obviously there would be the sense of loss without him there, but she still found herself sitting next to his spot just like she used to. Now, Jade has distinct memories after his passing of him walking in that room after a few minutes of her sitting by herself and talking with her. And apparently, her mom remembers hearing Jade talk as if she was having a conversation with someone, but they also just figured that maybe it was the TV that she was talking to.
Yeah, I don't like that. That's creepy. That's really creepy.
Again, I don't think it's creepier than the shadow, though?
I don't know. I was going to say, again, it's not giving evil or anything. It's just
eerie.
Yeah.
Just it's just unsettling.
Yeah.
It's the idea of any ghost situation, even if it's a loved one.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this on the baby monitor episode.
Yeah, like you
good and
you're
bad
allowed
experience.
To be creeped out by it.
Yes, you're allowed to be. We're giving you permission. Our podcast is giving you permission to be creeped out, even if it's a loved one that's visiting you. So here's a quote from Jade. Quote, I started to lose contact with the spiritual world after a while, after going into middle school. I was doing okay, and then one day, a package shows up at my front door with my mom's name on it, so I opened it. It was a Ouija board. Now, I'm not going to lie, I was kind of scared, but still mostly skeptical. I never believed in that dark magic stuff because, well, I think it's just wrong. After a day or two, I decided to play with it. I didn't think anything of it, again, because I didn't believe in it, and I'm still not sure if I do. While I was playing with it, it did move and say some things, but I thought maybe it was just me moving it. So when Jade was done playing with it, she would head back in her room and not really give it a second thought, which I think it is a wild situation to be in. Like, to be in a situation where you have skepticism.
Yeah.
That I've never used one proudly. I've never used one. So I can't speak to the sensation, but it's moving and it's saying stuff. And you can't identify if it's you or something else moving it.
You're not supposed to use it by yourself either.
There's also, what's her mom doing getting
a Ouija board?
There's a lot of things that she doesn't speak to here.
Yeah.
That are raising big old red
flags.
Like that. Okay. So this also goes back to another kind of mantra we have on the podcast. It's always better to experience something paranormal with someone else.
Yes.
Because I guess in this instance, there's two sides to it. Like if you and I were playing with a Ouija board, if it's moving, obviously in the back of both of our minds, there's that it's Tyler or it's Charlie.
Yeah.
But if you throw that out, like if you have this ultimate trust with someone, which I think would be good.
Yeah.
And it's moving and that's a fact, then it's this shared experience where you can't be skeptical. Because at the end of the day, it's either Charlie, did you move it? No. Tyler, did you move it? No. And it's like, well, it moved.
Yeah.
Where, if it's yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you see something in the mirror and you're like, oh, and then a week later you're like, was that a ghost? And then a month later you're like, it's probably,
yeah.
It's nothing. So I'm thinking that that's what's going on here.
I think so. Yes. That makes sense. But
also like, I still don't know if I believe in this. It was moving. It was saying some stuff, but maybe it's just me. But that's the psychological stuff of like, when they're like in a dark room staring at a mirror, it's just that you don't know what's going on. Either way. Wild experience. Jade, what's your mom doing getting a Ouija board?
Yeah.
So shortly after using the Ouija board, she did have some strange experiences and sensations. She started waking up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat and being terrified. And here is a quote from Jade. Quote, one night when I woke up, I saw this man in my room and he was hovering over me and I couldn't move. I remember smelling this horrible, horrible stench. And it was weird because I can barely smell anything. I've always had a bad nose since I was little. But I couldn't move, and he was just staring at me with these red, beating, evil eyes. It was like that for 2 minutes. When I was able to move again, I ran into my mom's room and I slept in her bed for the rest of the night. A few years later, I was 15 and living with my dad. I had my own room, but there was just something about it. My great-grandmother passed away due to cancer, and she smoked a lot, and of course, just like my great-grandfather, I remember that smell. I do identify as a Christian now, and try my best to avoid black magic, but still, my room, I constantly get the smell of cigarettes, and specifically the cigarettes my great-grandparents smoked, and I still see shadows. I wake up in the middle of the night and can't sleep without some sort of light. I've had sleep paralysis more than 5 times, and I've been visited by more family and friends that have passed away. I want it to stop. I don't like seeing these people who have suffered, and I don't like that they give me headaches and follow me around. The things that people tell me are horrifying, and they're starting to get violent and slam doors, and my cats are always looking around like there's someone trying to play with them. I just want everything to stop. I'll start cleansing my room and house, but I really need the shadow figures to stop. That is the end of her submission.
Yo.
First of all, thank you, Jade, for submitting your story. Nothing like... Now, what I'm about to say makes waking up and seeing a shadow figure with red eyes seem mundane, and I don't mean it that way. Nothing like intensely terrible has happened to her. And outside of like family, real life suicide and that like loss, like genuine loss that we experience as humans.
From the paranormal.
Yeah. Like from the paranormal, there's nothing like things were getting thrown at her, but she is
sleep paralysis is scary.
Sleep paralysis is scary. Obviously, there's two sides to that, even though there's a lot of paranormal stuff going on here. But I mean, this is it's pretty grim. I don't blame her for wanting to stop.
I have a hunch. She messed around with that Ouija board. Did she ever close it out?
I mean, probably not.
Right.
I don't think
she said, "Let me open this door. Welcome in, Mr. Ghosty." And I don't think she ever ended that.
Please stay. Would you like to pretend to be my grandfather and grandmother? Perfect.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, I think there is a chance that the story of the shadow hovering over her is just, and I don't mean just that it's not intense, but potentially just
sleep paralysis,
but could like be. the non-paranormal side of sleep paralysis.
I have a question about that though. Is there scent associated with that typically?
No.
Okay.
No, there's not.
All right.
It's pretty much the telltale of wake up, can't move, seeing something. But you're right. The stench, and she didn't say it was cigarette. Which, by the way, it's interesting that she said she has a bad nose, but the cigarette thing was kind of
it's a pretty strong smell.
It is. No, that's a very good point, Charlie. That is one identifier that it's a whole different sense getting hit.
Yeah. Bad smells are not good typically.
No, I think you're right. I think it makes me wonder where the Ouija board came from.
Let's see.
That's a whole... Someone's like making it like they're going to love this.
Yeah.
There's a whole other world of questions I have.
I wonder if her mom ordered it. Like, what kind of world is her mom in? I'm interested about that. I don't know. I guess we'll never find out.
We'll probably never find out, but that's wild. There's so much paranormal stuff happening here. It just makes me sad. It's like we get submissions from folks who are like, this happens and it is what it is.
Yeah.
But like the desire for it to stop and it hasn't stopped. It's not like nothing's happened for a few months and it's like, no. Shadow figures, and she's like, they're telling me things and it's horrifying.
Yeah, that's really scary. This whole situation is really scary. I hope we get an update after this comes out. Yeah, I really do.
This is she's definitely sensitive for sure. Like for sure. That is Jade's story. Let's move on to our next listener submission. All right, so this is from Abby, and it takes place in Missouri.
Another Abby?
Another Abby. What was the other Abby?
Grandmother's funeral.
This one takes place in Patrick Mahomes land, Travis Kelce world. That's Cleveland. I'm just kidding.
It's true.
You don't get
he's
Travis
both.
Kelce.
He's both.
Yeah, but he's... You know what when they introduce players and they're like, the Ohio State University.
Yes, yeah.
He says Cleveland Heights now.
He said
Cleveland Which, by the way, our friend Parker's pissed because he's from Cincinnati. It's just funny. That's very LeBron, but he didn't go to college, so he has to say
it is weird to me when the high school, when the football players say the high school instead of the college.
Yeah. Yeah, you can always tell them what the character. I remember OBJ when he was on our team, he was like, you know who I am. Just that kind of thing. It's just funny.
I love those.
Anyway, so this is from Abby. It takes place in Missouri. And just a reminder again, like the previous story, this one does have a suicide warning as trigger. Yeah. So let's get into Abby's submission. Quote, I've got multiple small stories that kind of lead up to a longer one. They might not be related. They might just be situational more than anything. In 2007, my older cousin had committed suicide. I was about 11 or so at the time. I had never been to any funeral or experienced death before. Although I loved my cousin, as a child, I was too uncomfortable to attend the funeral, so I stayed by myself at my grandma's while everyone else went. My grandma's house at the time was right across the road from the cemetery. At one point, while the show I was watching went on commercial break, I went to go look at the fish swimming in the fish tank that she had. Out of nowhere, I had the urge to turn around. I don't know what it was, but it just felt like there was this heavy presence behind me. I whipped my head around, and for a split second, I swear I saw the face of a man behind me. I don't remember being freaked out at all at the time because I try to play it off as maybe it was just some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe it was a glare or dust. I don't know what child me was thinking, but somewhere down the line of me going over this occurrence over and over in my head, I came to find something out. Apparently, my cousin had written a goodbye letter, and at the end of it, she wrote that she'd be able to see my grandpa again in heaven. Now, I had never met our grandpa. I'd only seen him in pictures. But in that moment, everything clicked. I truly like to believe that the face that I saw was my grandpa. He knew he was being called upon and wanted to make himself known as being there with all of us during such an emotional, raw day. I haven't told much family about this due to it being a obviously pretty sensitive subject, but it's an experience that has stayed with me. Unquote. This will stop in the winter.
I know.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So that's our first experience. Any thoughts from that to you?
Yeah. I have thoughts.
I got thinkings. Thought bubbles. I saw them popping up. That's how I knew you had some thoughts.
Yeah, I was thinking about is that really the grandfather?
Based on her sensation, I think there's a chance it is.
Okay. I just skeptical. I'm just nervous. That makes me nervous.
All we have is a snapshot that's kind of presented to us from Abby.
Yeah.
And based on the way she's framing it, I feel like it's a possibility. If there really was something behind her and it was his face.
Yeah.
That, and then, for her time, I mean, because for a long time she had nothing to go off of. And then she finds out about the letter and mentions the grandfather. So it's kind of, it took a long time to come full circle.
I guess my question, what does heavy presence mean to you?
I don't know. I don't know if it's heavy, it's consuming, or just that obvious feeling that someone is behind me.
Bear the load, Mr. Frodo.
I'm taking it as just this feeling like there is someone behind me.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what that means.
I'm trying to be happy, man. First one was very depressing.
It was. Okay. Yeah, it was the grandpa. Okay.
And we're all on the same page here. We're all happy. Well, in terms of the way that these experiences could go, that's the best case.
Yes. Yeah.
And the most heartwarming, I guess, even though it's a very sad, tragic subject.
It is.
Way to tie it in. So Abby's second experience was a few years later when she was in her teens. Her parents were house hunting, and they'd set up an appointment with a realtor to view this huge old house in the historic part of their town. As they pulled up to the old home, Abby immediately had an uneasy feeling that she couldn't put her finger on. It had a huge front porch, a small shed in the back, and a beautiful staircase that you'd see when you walk in the front doors. The living room had double doors that led to a dining room, and then you would see a door that supposedly was supposed to lead to the attic. But when they went to look at it, they discovered that someone had nailed a huge chunk of drywall up over it. They essentially completely sealed off and closed the way up to the attic.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, I don't like that.
Oh.
The realtor laughed it off, saying that she wasn't sure why the owner would do that, but guess we're not going to go up there.
Yeah. Maybe take down the door then.
Yeah, I don't know. It's that's
it's like a hasty thing where you have to seal it off.
Yeah, it reminds me of we've joked about it. It might have been pretty bad. The last, if you think about the last moments of a horror movie,
yeah,
and then imagine the next day. I think it was because we were watching the new Evil Dead movie. It took place at the apartments.
Yeah.
And there's just blood and guts everywhere. And so Ben and I were like, imagine the janitor the next day. And he's like, what the you know what I mean? And it's so you see the horror movie, they put the head in the box to reverse the curse, but they're still the bad person. And they're running down and they got to seal the door. And then a week later, the realtor's like, I don't know why it's sealed. That's what it makes me think of. Yeah. Literally could just be draft,
Could be super drafty.
Nothing good up there. It's, bad foundation.
It's not sealed up properly.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. So a little later in their tour, they went outside and they explored the shed. There were a ton of empty pill bottles strewn across the shed, and many of them were painkillers. Here's a quote from Abby. The house must be as is, by the way.
Yeah.
Here's a quote from Abby. Quote, "The rest of the tour, I couldn't help but feel uneasy. There was such a dark, heavy presence that seemed to follow. At one point, while the adults were talking, I went into the living room. There was a massive mirror built on the wall above a small fireplace. Me, being the stylish little emo girl, I took a mirror selfie with my hot pink flip phone. At the time, I didn't notice anything, but a few days later, when I went to upload it on my yearbook to impress my 10 internet boyfriends, I noticed something in the background. I thought at first that it was just a reflection, but when I zoomed in, my stomach dropped. What I thought was a glare was actually a distorted, pale face with its mouth dark and agape, almost as if it was screaming. It was right over my shoulder. My blood ran ice cold, and I couldn't believe what I'd gotten in this photo. Unfortunately, a few days later, my phone had been broken by a friend on accident. Of course.
I was about to say, do we have that photo?
No.
Oh my God.
That would be the name of the episode. That would be the picture of the graphic. That'd be our new logo. That'd be our new podcast logo.
Oh, I want to see it
tattooed on your forehead. Your forehead, so I could see it.
Oh, okay, cool.
So thankfully, this is still our quote. Thankfully, my parents decided against getting the house.
Yeah.
More due to the costs of uncertain repairs and how much
the cost of their lives.
The winter in their lives, yeah. But for years, when I would think about that house, or even the days that I drive past it, I get chills and an immediate feeling of dread. That would be so terrifying to look back. I mean, we had experiences of that, but ours were expected. Like, you and I had gone ghost hunting. Our friend took photos, and we kind of had a feeling we might find something in these pictures. I couldn't imagine. Now, I guess there were, she had red flags going off. Like, she was like, I don't feel comfortable here. I'm getting uneasy, dark presence. So,
yeah, but
I don't think it completely was like out of left field. But at the same time, if you look back at any of your, like here, or like, you know what I mean? Like, imagine you look at, like, we take a photo after one of our live events here, or something with Ben. And
not look the boozer.
And in the, no, we wouldn't. It's not like, no, it's just Charlie's vomit on the camera. No, but you see something in the corner.
Yeah, like a person turn around or something.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at least she never has to go back. Like that, that's the benefit of not buying. Could you imagine the parents that buy the house? Your daughter's afraid. She got a picture of a ghost.
Oh yeah,
well, it was a great 2% interest.
Sounds like a really good horror movie plot.
Sounds like that house.
This is a house in Missouri, right? So this is Missouri. That house is not clean.
Give it a take. You get the Chiefs, you got to have some haunted ass house.
Well, also the past. I'm talking about the history.
Yeah. Oh, like things that happened in that house.
Yes. I mean, like, I don't know how old the house was, but it sounds pretty old.
She said it was very, very old.
Sounds like it was around during the 1800s.
What bad stuff happened then, Charlie?
Well, several bad things. Mostly the Civil War.
Yeah.
Yeah. Slavery and such.
So a few years later, when Abby turned 23, she was working at an assisted living facility as a dietary server. Overall, it was a pretty small facility, and each hallway connected and formed the shape of a square with a courtyard in the middle. So basically, no one could get out. Like they could go outside. They could go outside, enjoy some fresh air and sunshine, but they couldn't leave.
They couldn't.
Just stay in the middle. So here's a quote from Abby. Quote, I worked the morning and afternoon shift, so I was always the one serving breakfast to the elderly residents and prepping for lunch. One morning, around 6:30 a.m., I was in the kitchen prepping to serve some fruit. We like to have the radio on to jam and basically to pass time. I had it turned up quite a bit because music helps me relax. A few moments later, I walked away to grab something from out of the dining area, and when I came back, the radio had been turned down. I figured that it was the cook who did it, and to mess with her, I turned it right back up. A little later, I went to get a food order from a couple residents who had come down to eat, and when I got back to the kitchen, once again, the radio had been turned down. I looked over at the cook, who was in her own little world, cooking the food and plating it. Once again, I turned it up and watched her reaction to see if she would call me out. I was expecting her to say, quit turning it up, or I just turned that thing down. But there's nothing. So I went off and I did my job, and about 10 minutes later, once again, the radio had been turned way down. At this point, I asked the cook, hey, do you keep turning the radio down? And she looked at me really confused and said, baby girl, I haven't touched that damn thing all day. The cook was an older country woman, really nice, but also not one to play games. So I believed her. She went on to tell me that weird things happen around there. Because if you think about it, people died here for years, past and future, sad as it is. Now, one thing about the kitchen is in the back, there's a short hallway that leads to the dietary manager's office. And also, if you keep following it, it leads to a door to outside. It takes you to the side of the building and to the far end of the parking lot. The cook proceeded to tell me that years prior, when a resident would pass away, the funeral home people would come in with their gurney through that side door, through the kitchen, and out the rest of the building. They would also leave through the kitchen, body on the gurney and all. Now, this was supposed to be a way to keep some sort of privacy. Instead of taking the body out the front door, for everyone to see, which would naturally upset other residents, it was a bit more private to sneak them through the side door in the kitchen. Now, this always was really unsettling to Abby. She hated the idea of someone cooking food, nourishment for others to eat, while a deceased body was sneakily taken by it. Even if it was the, quote, smartest way, and they're in a body bag, they're doing it for the sake of the other residents, it still really creeped Abby out. And the way she thinks of it, there were souls that were taken down that hallway that may not have left out the door. Thoughts on that?
That makes a lot of sense.
Reminds me of Waverly Place, the Waverly Sanatorium.
Oh,
remember when they were taking the bodies down that tunnel?
Yeah.
They're like, everyone's fine here. Yeah. Where'd Jerry go?
Yes.
He must have been released.
Yes, yeah, they were released in a sense. I don't think it's creepy that they're going through the kitchen. It's more private. It's probably just disarming in a sense because you don't think of them going through this place. But if it's the quietest way out, I get it. But
logistically, it makes sense.
Yeah. But I do think that makes a lot of sense also that the spirits don't necessarily go with it.
Because they talk about they being the internet. Talk about spirits and pathways. You know what I mean? Like when they talk about, I'm using they a lot. Well, the idea of a ghost traveling through a wall, and some people claim that the way that the house used to be set up, like there used to be a hallway.
Yeah,
here.
I like that idea.
But now they're walking through a wall, but it used to be something else. It's like if this is the path that their body was taken out, is there weird stuff going to happen in this area just because of that? I think to your point, I don't think you blatantly said it, but I'm going to go off of what I was feeling like you were saying.
Okay.
I don't think it's unsettling because dead bodies in the kitchen, even though it's like a rat in the kitchen, doesn't necessarily mean that it's unsanitary. It's just like you don't like the idea of it. Like, dead body.
Right, too. He's not that bad, though,
he's pulling your hair and you as long as they keep the cheese on, keep the rat. I think if this was any part of her job, it'd be unsettling. Yeah. Like if her job was anything in there and she found out bodies were traveling through her workspace, I think she would find that unsettling.
Yeah.
Now, maybe the food component, adds an extra layer.
I think so, yeah.
But I don't know. Do you think it's extra weird because it's the kitchen, or do you think it's just her reaction to it being her workspace?
I think it's because it's her workspace. She didn't realize that people had died and had to go through where she was prepping fruit.
Yeah. I feel like we're going to get a lot of people that are like, no, dead bodies in the kitchen.
Well, it's not they made them stay there.
They're like, hey, drop the guy. Come taste the gravy. Does it need anything?
They didn't use his finger as a dipping pot.
I don't got a spoon. Hey, use his middle finger.
Yeah, it's not like that. Just they rolled through really quick,
Oh, Jerry always carried a sugar pack in his pocket. Let me reach in and get it real quick.
Yeah, or you're not stirring the sauce with his foot.
It's Splenda, is it okay?
But you know what I mean? Like they're just going through. So
there's multiple layers here. Yeah, quick, creepy. It's creepy because she's already had experience with ghosts, and she had a weird experience with the radio.
Yeah.
What do you think about the radio thing?
We didn't really talk about the radio too much.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably me overview stuff in the discussion.
Yeah.
I know.
How old lady is that to passive aggressively turn down the radio, though?
I don't think it's her.
The cook?
Yeah.
No. I mean, like an old dead lady.
I don't think she can hear it. She'd be turning it up so she can blasting that music. I mean, no, I see what you mean. Just like turn it down.
Mm-hmm. That's what I think it is. I think that's definitely a spirit who's like,
oh. But you don't think it's a cook?
No, I don't think it's a cook.
All right, so let's move on to Abby's last encounter in her words. Quote, "This was a couple years later. I still worked at the assisted living facility, but I'd actually moved up and became a nurse's assistant. So I worked on the floor, caring for the residents hands-on. I usually worked day shift, but I picked up a night shift due to low staffing. It was my very first overnight shift, and I'll be the first to admit that I was kind of weirded out by it. Walking down dark hallways that I was so used to seeing lit up, the silence that caused every footstep to echo. It was about 1 a.m. I had just finished my rounds and was sitting in the medication room. It was where we used the computers to chart residents' information and store the medication. I was sitting at the computer, charting, when out of the corner of my eye, I saw a solid red light on the phone. I looked and saw the red light had popped up on the dietary manager line, which meant that someone was on the phone in the back office in the kitchen, the office that would have been passed many times in prior years with occupied gurneys. I picked up the phone and tried to page to the back office, thinking that maybe it was just a glitch in the system, but of course, it didn't go through. Now, the kitchen itself is locked up tight at night, and the office back there is locked up as well. The only person who has a key to either one was me.
Why would you do this? Why would you fucking do this?
The shift supervisor would be the one holding the main set of keys that gave entrance to every door in the building, except the administrator and the director of nursing. Even then, the only 2 girls I was working with were currently with a resident and assisting them to the restroom right across the hall, so I could hear both of them in there. Looking at that light, it was like it was taunting me, beckoning me to come and see what was going on, so I knew what I had to do. I got up and I walked to the dining room, slowly walked up to the kitchen door. I tried the handle, and sure enough, it was locked. I didn't see any lights underneath the door, so I got the key out and I unlocked it. The moment that I threw open the door, all I saw was pure blackness. And at that moment, every horror movie I'd ever seen went through my mind. I flipped the light switch on, which honestly scared me even more, because all I could picture was that scene from the movie Legion, where the old crickety deformed lady crawls up the wall and onto the ceiling. I sat still for a moment and I strained my ears, trying to see if I could hear someone talking. There's nothing. I could see somewhat down the hall in the back and saw that the door to the office was shut. I could also see that, of course, half of the light bulbs in the hall weren't working, so it was dimmer than the rest of the kitchen. I slowly made my way over to the hallway. Right before the door, there's a window that looks into the office. The blinds were half open, and while making my way up to the door, I saw something dark move quickly past the window. Now, the office's lights was off, so it was already dark in there, so whatever I saw was prominently darker and solid. It was a quick movement, and when I shot my head over to glance at it, the blinds were slightly moving, as if some sort of force had caused them to move, or if someone had tried to look through them. Now, the blinds were inside the office, so any wind that my body created while walking by wouldn't have touched it. The air itself wasn't on, and I had been walking lightly, so there really couldn't have been any vibration to cause movement. When you have to sneak past sleeping elderly people to take vitals, you learn how to step lightly. I'll be honest, when I saw that movement, it surprised me in a I almost shit myself kind of way. I had made a small squeal noise and everything. I wanted to run away, but honestly, I was more scared to turn my back against that area, so I went forward. I approached the door, knocked softly, and called for the dietary manager. Carla? It was 1 a.m., so did I really think she was in there? No. But part of me hoped her and her husband maybe got drunk and a fight, and maybe she was staying the night in her office. But no answer. I went to open the door, and again, it was locked tight. I slid my key in and turned the lock, and as soon as I did, I heard a crashing noise. I immediately whipped the door open, and what I saw shocked me. The office is also where dry canned foods restored. There was a 3-tiered metal shelf holding all of it. The middle shelf on the section across from the door held cans of soup, all of which were now on the floor. After the initial shock of the cans, I looked over to the desk to see the whole reason that I'd come in the first place. The phone was off the server, and it wasn't like half off, like someone had accidentally misplaced it when hanging up. No, the phone was completely hanging off the side of the desk. I picked it up and placed it back on the server, making sure that it was on there tight. I radioed my coworker and asked her to check the phone system, and of course, the red light next to the dietary manager's name had gone away. She then proceeded to ask, "What the hell was that noise? You're going to wake everyone up." I told her I'm pretty sure I was about to be murdered, half joking, but also voice shaking. I went to inspect the shelf before placing the cans back up. The shelf in its hole was completely solid, sturdy, no signs of tipping over or shaking. Plus, there were tons of other dry goods surrounding the area where the cans were, but all of that was still neatly lined up and in place. Yet the 6 rows of cans had been the only thing that came tumbling off. Even if there was a critter scurrying around, there's no way it could have shoved all of them off at the same time. Especially right when I clicked the lock open. There was no one in the office. It was locked tight, so I quickly stacked the cans and ran out of the area as fast as I could. The rest of the night, I did my rounds, and I made one of my coworkers stay with me the whole time, and then I stayed in the medication room with the lights on. Once 6 a.m. came around and the cook came in, I went to talk to her. She had not stopped by or been anywhere near the building since she had left earlier the day prior. When I told her about the cans, she just chuckled to herself and said, "They must have been playing." That was my one and only night shift I ever picked up. After that, I stuck with my days. I did ask other overnight girls, and a lot of them have their own stories. Walking by windows that face the courtyard at night and seeing shadow figures walk through the courtyard, hearing unexplained noises through the halls like a rusty walker squealing down the hallway, but never actually finding anyone. Don't get me wrong. During the day, I had small things happen, such as objects moving from where I know I sat them, call lights going off in rooms that didn't have anyone in them for months. But that night was by far the scariest I had ever encountered in my 5 years of being there. I feel like the more death I experienced, though, while working there, the more hands I held as they took their final breath. These occurrences made sense. They were almost comforting. When a resident would pass away, we immediately opened their bedroom windows and left them open for days, hoping to give their spirits time to be free. I guess some of them didn't want to leave, though. To a lot of the elderly I cared for, it was as if I was their family. Unquote.
It's pretty scary.
So that is Abby's story. That's also Jade's story, if you remember from the first bit of this episode.
Yeah.
Let us slide into the discussion. All right, Charlie. So we got Jade, picture frame, and the Ouija board, and the shadow figure, sleep paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
Then we got Abby, which we had the house that she went in.
Yes.
We had obviously the 2 experiences with the radio, and then this figure at her assisted living center. She had a first story though, too.
The fish and the face.
Oh, her grandfather, the grandfather's face, the fish. I'm glad you remember the fish. Let's talk about Jade's first.
Yeah,
we already talked a lot about it, so we don't have to go too in depth about it.
Yeah, it really scares me that there's more associated with the sleep paralysis than just not being able to move.
She's clearly sensitive.
Yes,
and I hate that she's going through what she's going through. I kind of feel that way for most of these people.
Yeah,
and by these people, I mean the people that send us stories. I mean, I like non-cryptid stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like hauntings.
Well, shoot, even that one guy from Utah.
Oh, Jordan?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jordan from Utah. I think he moved, though.
He did move,
so he's hopefully fine. I'm sure he's fine. But, like, there's some people that have, like, send us hauntings. And like, yeah, it happens. And you're like, okay.
But hers is really scary because she said it's getting worse.
I feel like once every few months, we get a story where you just, like, you have this, like, innate feeling of, like, I want to help them. And I know there's nothing we can do.
No.
It's just this, like, you know they're in a bad spot and they want out. And you're like, yeah, let's help them. And you're like, what does that even mean?
Yeah. What can I even do? I'll go to your house and I'll burn some sage.
Well, hook you up with Isaac from Hidden the Shadows.
Yeah, and they have reached out to some of our people.
Yeah.
And I think they can probably help more than we can.
Oh, 100% more than we can help.
Yeah.
But I think I think she's sensitive.
Yes.
I think there's hauntings there. I think she was sensitive and experienced stuff before the Ouija board.
Yes.
But then the Ouija board came in, she played it by herself.
Yeah.
And
it's like she plugged her acoustic guitar into an amplifier.
And people heard it.
Well,
she drew a crowd.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
She played a chord. What are you trying to get at?
I think that it made her power
bigger.
Yes. That's what I'm trying to say.
11.
She cranked the acoustic to electric and it became very cool and distorted.
I want to know, Jade's mom, what are you doing?
What
are you doing, Jade's mom?
That's like the biggest question.
What are you doing with that Ouija board?
Well, maybe she wanted to talk to James.
Now, that is a good theory. Especially if, like, because she's older at this point. Like, Jade's older when the Ouija board comes. So, from the first story of Jade not knowing who James is, saying his name, pointing at it, to her taking the photo down.
Yeah.
Between that moment and the Ouija board, they could have had that revelation of, hey, you know, you were saying his name and you didn't know who he was. And then she's like, oh, I was saying shadow figures. And, you know, her mom's
was following you.
Yeah,
play games with me.
That might have happened prior. And maybe that's what caused her to. But if they had that conversation, how do they not have a conversation or at least let us know? Like my mom got a Ouija board because that's such a critical. It feels like
an easy overlook to me, though.
Does it?
It does.
Dude, a package arrived from my mom, so I opened it up. It was a Ouija board, and I'm not critiquing your submission because I think it's an amazing story and sad in that it's happening to you.
Yes,
but I'm just curious if it crossed her mind to be like, I wonder if I should explain why my mom was getting, unless the mom didn't order it.
Where would it come from then?
That's a whole other can.
That's a USP
fruit.
Shipping error.
A splashing can of fruit on the floor of the nursing home. Assisted living. ASL.
Yeah.
Skilled nursing. Shitty. I go believable.
I mean, yeah, I believe it.
It's haunting. No one would make that up and be like, I want this to end. I want this to end. I need this. Like, I need help. I mean, that's cool. It's also interesting because she has a level of skepticism that doesn't quite match the desire for things to end.
Yes, that's true.
Like, either you're concerned about it and you want it to end and you're hearing horrible things and you're seeing shadow figures and you're not skeptical, or you're skeptical and you're like, you know what I mean? Like, because she's saying she doesn't do the dark magic. She's Christian.
Yeah.
You know, she's going to do a cleanse. There's the hope. She said she was going to do a cleanse.
Yes.
I hope it happened. I hope it helped.
Me too.
I hope you're good. I love how you spell your name. Stoked. All right, on to Abby.
Yeah.
So, grandfather's face with the funeral.
Let's be hopeful again. Hopefully it is the grandfather's face.
Yeah, I think we can kind of just, let's pretend it is the grandfather. It connects all the dots that she needs in her mind, and she'll probably never see that entity again. And I don't mean that in like she'll never see her grandfather again. I just mean like she has probably moved on from that story and that moment.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It's not like a fear of happening again. So let's just leave that in a happy world.
Right.
We need that today.
Yes.
So then the house is a haunted house.
Oh, that house is so haunted.
I mean, she felt it. She's sensitive. The attic being locked off.
Like walled off. Walled off.
Pills, and I don't mean that like damning pills. I know pills are very good for a lot of people. But like strewn across a shed is just kind of like...
It feels like people who have problems go there to take those things.
Not good. Things are not good.
And then mixed with the face. So there's something there.
Yeah, the face, like, you know, I'm happy for her that her phone broke. Like, did she lose evidence?
I'm not.
Yes. You don't want to have that picture.
I want to see it.
But if it was you, would you want that picture to exist?
No. It'd be not good. But
you know, she really did upload that to her My Yearbook thing or whatever that is. That's before our time, right?
I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is. And by before, I mean after, I think. I thought she was going to say MySpace. Sorry, I think she's younger than us.
Oh, okay.
So I'm saying I don't think we did that. I think it was people after us.
My Yearbook.
It was like a My Yearbook.
I wonder if it's like a school thing.
It could be. Like Rate My Professor.
Yeah, I don't know.
Your school is My Yearbook, so it's online.
I don't know.
I don't know if she posted it. It should have a digital footprint, but
that feels hard to track.
She has to go back to her high school and be like, hey. I'm wearing a Fall Out Boy shirt, and I got the thick eyeliner, and I'm doing a peace sign.
The chunky pink hair,
and there's also a ghost in there. Can I get that back? I think it's like part of me would be a little relieved it was gone, just because it's like
I get that
it's gone. It doesn't. This thing can't harm me because we've talked about photographs before. We've talked about pictures and
I
paintings.
think she's lucky she didn't get an attachment.
Yeah. Do you? I mean, it doesn't seem like that's the case.
No, there would have been more stories in between about this thing.
Yeah. It seems like the first story is, I guess, more about her.
Yeah.
The other ones seem location based. Like she went to a haunted house.
Yes.
And then this nursing, we talk about hospitals. We talk about a place like that. Like there's a nursing facility.
Yeah.
Or an assisted living facility.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. That's probably the thing we've talked about the least here. So the first story with the radio, which we didn't talk about, and then we got the light and the phone and the cans and the figure. But let's talk about the radio.
Yeah, I think it was an older spirit who was just like, turn that music down, youngin. Yeah.
It's such a mundane thing. And if it was a one-off, I probably would try to find excuses for it. Like other people, the cook was lying.
Mm-hmm.
Like the problem is, or the benefit of the doubt towards it being paranormal is that there's so many other little things. Like it's not just her experience. Like people, like even when she told the cook this stuff happened, that was probably just them playing. And all the other people that work night shifts had their own stories. It seems like these little things, and she even said objects are moving.
Yeah, during the day. So
it seems like it fits in along with those details, those moments.
The call lights in the rooms.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that. I despise that.
What experience do you have with that?
I don't know. I think just TV.
Okay.
But like,
I don't know if you had a personal.
No. I think knock on wood, but I just don't like the idea that someone's calling and then there's no one there.
I totally get what she means when she's like it's beckoning her and taunting because you just have that like you must know what's going on.
That felt like she was being baited.
Dude,
to me.
You're sitting there, no one's back there, and you see that light come, and you just like. I'd be thinking the same thing. I'd be like, oh, it's a glitch.
Yeah.
But it's just on, and it's like, that means someone's on the phone, but no one's back there.
I wouldn't go check. I'm like, well, I guess that phone's on.
Well, I would probably wait until one of the other, there are two other people working, helping a resident, which is, let them do, I wouldn't interrupt, let them do their thing.
Yeah.
But eventually they're going to come back and be like, hey, I'll wait here.
Yeah.
Like, you go get a flashlight or something.
I'd be like, that's on you to go check. I'm not going to check.
The shadow moving is creepy.
It's so scary.
And she makes a really good point how it's like theoretically, could an animal have knocked the cans off? Potentially. But she makes a good point time-wise. As soon as she opens the door, the phone is hanging off and the cans all fall. Like it's just so coincidental. And the detail that the phone isn't just slightly off the hook.
It's all the way off.
It is hanging. It's like, what was holding the phone? And the doors were locked, so it's like they would have had to get past Abby.
Yeah. To
escape. And she did see the figure, but it's not like it was like a real person in there, and then they're hiding, and then they somehow get past her in the darkness. Even if that's the case, then how do you explain the cans falling off? Because they'd have to still be in that room.
I wouldn't have put the cans up. I wouldn't have done it. I would have gone back there.
Leave it as is. Leave it for someone else.
Yep.
Well,
that's Carla's job.
That's her. Yeah, Carla. Clean up your fruit, Carla. I feel like that's just her like doing something to take her mind off it, but also like it's her job, and she's like, I need to do something.
Oh boy, not there.
The fruit and the bang would be the jump scare.
Yeah,
but the most unsettling thing to me is the phone off because you saw the initiation.
Yeah,
it's not like the light like if she started her shift and the light was on, and all night she's like, why is it on? Are they still on the phone? Then maybe I don't know how the functionality of this works, but. For her to see the light turn on is the moment that phone got lifted. And that whole time it was locked doors, no one back there. Scary.
Yeah. No. It feels like it baited her out there.
That's even scarier. I don't think those are she was obviously scared shitless, but it seems like it's not. The majority of what they see there doesn't seem malicious.
I think you're right. I don't think so either. It's probably just
could have been a communication thing.
Confusion.
she scared this spirit, and she walked in like, oh my god, and
maybe just knocked over
all the cans.
Yeah.
Who is our clumsiest patient? So here on this podcast, if you're first time listening, hello, welcome for listening for an hour. We rate these stories, which we already rated one, but
we did
pretend that didn't happen. Rate them from believable to viable to skeptical to unbelievable. Every now and then we throw out one of them. It's not nice when it's listener submissions, but it happens. It happens. Charlie, what do you rate Abby's story on that scale?
Like the whole thing?
Yep, whole thing. You got to make it a big soup.
The whole soup?
Whole soup. You don't get to just take out the potato.
There's not one part of the story that I don't believe. I definitely believe that house is super haunted. It makes sense that a grandparent would come comfort during a terrible day. And this kind of facility is absolutely haunted. I go believable.
I think the least believable part is maybe the face. Like, she was so young. There's a chance she just, something weird happened there. Maybe it wasn't her grandfather or wasn't even a face.
Yeah.
But I do think she's sensitive. So I'm not saying I don't believe that. I'm just saying out of all of these experiences, that's the one where I'm like, maybe not. Mm-hmm. Maybe not. But I agree. I think she's sensitive, and I think she finds herself in haunted places like hospitals, mm-hmm. like hospice centers, nursing homes, assisted living facilities. It makes sense that there'd be spirits here. So 100% believe. So that is our episode, the mysterious 1 a.m. phone call. Do you think that fits?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. That was good. Looking at it is good.
I'll be honest. If I was a listener of a different podcast and I saw the title, The Mysterious 1 a.m. Phone Call, I would think it was like someone at home gets a phone call. Like that Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
And they answer and there's just no one there, or they're saying like a weird whispering.
Yeah.
And then you find out it's like I think it sounds like her husband who passed, or someone who passed, and then you find that the telephone wire got, like, I think broken in a storm. Oh. And it was dropped in the cemetery.
Yeah.
That's so good, dude. The Twilight Zone from the 60s is so good.
It's very good.
But it's also
not like this.
very good when you enjoy these episodes and you tell your friends about it.
Yeah.
Word of mouth, sharing links.
Sharing is caring.
Sharing links. It takes a second to, click the little share icon. Copy.
And smack dab in the middle of spooky season. Don't you want to share a good spooky story?
You don't have to share this one if you don't want. I mean, there's many other ones.
Yeah.
I'm curious which one you guys would share. I had my 2-year work anniversary coming up, and they're doing like a meet the team video thing.
Oh, cool.
And they're like, what's one fun fact about you? And it was like this in the band, which I was like, please don't look. You can look at my podcast. It's fine. Please don't look at my band. Please don't look at it. And thankfully, because my name, you can't find much. But there was like which episodes would you recommend? And it was really hard. And I was on the spot. So I said Antonio Villas-Boas if you want something fun, light, weird, but 20 minutes.
Yeah.
25 minutes. And then I said Devil's Hole as for the story element.
That's a good story.
Long. I didn't think scary. I'm not telling these people to watch, listen to something that's
not
terrifying.
Scary. It's just really interesting. The whole part of Australia and that whole thing.
But it's like you sharing. I think it's like when someone wants to watch a TV show and you got to pick that one episode. Obviously, you could say episode 1 of anything.
Yeah.
But like when I want to introduce my friends to Psych, I picked a specific episode that I wanted to share with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So put some thought into whatever you recommend, because what you show them is going to be forever their first impression of us. So
my manager, no pressure. At Cedar Lee, when I was at the movie theater, he told me to listen to last podcast and left. He was like, O.J. Simpson or Menendez Brothers.
Yeah.
I was like, Menendez Brothers, I guess.
Yeah.
And I still listen to him. So
there you go. Reminder. It's coming up, guys. It is coming up Saturday, October 26th. Live is our Halloween special. It is going to be on Twitch, which is free. You just need an account. You need to be following us. Get your popcorn, get your pizza, get your soda pops, get your drinks, get your wine.
That's a lot of drinks.
Hook up your computer to your TV, or
hook it up to a projector and project it for the whole neighborhood to see.
Are there smart enough TVs out there where you just like do Twitch on your TV?
Yes.
Like for me, I would be like connect my computer, HDMI to
there are Twitch on TV.
I got dumb TV.
Alex has that.
My TV's barely turn on. I don't even know where the remote control is in one of my TVs. But I mean, I know people have done that because in the past they've told us.
Or your console too, I think, can also
console. Yeah, that's Twitch. A good point. Yeah. Put it on your big TV. Sit back, have fun with it. But that is Saturday, October 26th. at 9 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be a lot of fun. Scary stories.
We haven't announced where we're going to be yet, right?
They don't know until it happens.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They're not going to know until it happens. There are some clues. If you look deep enough, hard enough, you'll find some clues. But that's all you're going to know. Charlie's found out like 3 weeks ago.
It's true. I was like, whoa, really? Okay. And if you're enjoying the podcast, you like the episodes, it's not quite the same, but it's pretty similar. It's us, and it's also producer Ben. We've got a lot going on Patreon. We do 2 drops in a week, Wednesday and Friday. We've got a really consistent schedule now. Stuff's coming out pretty consistently, and we're pretty proud of that. And there's a lot of stuff going on. If you like games, if you like more experiences, if you like really in-depth stories, have some fun. Check us out on Patreon.
It supports the podcast, and there's so much extra content out there. We love creating it. We've heard good things.
To quote PBS, viewers like you.
Yeah, it's fun, and we appreciate it. And it's always a good time. But thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. Also, if you want to submit your own story to the podcast, go to believingthebizarre.com. Go to submit your experience in the main navigation menu. There's a form there. Fill it out, please, with as much detail. Here's the risk. Now, we don't want you to lie. We never, ever, ever want you to lie. You know, don't embellish just for the sake of making it longer. Tell your story. Tell your truth. But just be honest, the difference between a longer episode versus a shorter, or a longer submission versus a shorter submission, is a longer submission will be featured probably on a main episode.
Yeah.
A really, really short submission might be read drunk by Charlie, and we'll have to redo it again later.
That's facts. Maybe that'll happen on the live.
So thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast that believes Carla should pick up her own goddamn fruit. As always, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre.
The podcast is bizarre as you are.